evening. And so you know how people usually say, save the best for last? Yeah, that's not happening tonight. All right, cracking on. I'm Chris Clitheroe, and I'm currently doing a PhD in science communication at the Australian National University with the Centre for the Public Awareness of Science. And I'm also associated with a little hub called the Popsicle, and we study science in popular culture and entertainment. And tonight I want to make a case for hope punk and bioengineering techno-optimism in comics. Right, so what does that mean? I'm thinking every day about how we imagine as a society that science can reimagine life. What do we think that science is capable of based on what we hear in pop culture? So I immerse myself in beautiful imagery of surreal, unbelievable biotechnologies of the future, like this mycelial biocomputer, and I contemplate the narrative of the mystical transhumans who have modified themselves to interact with this technology. It means that yesterday I was probably reading a little bit of The Boys, then switching over to Spider-Man, and then looking at this gross image my friend sent me of the thing on her arm. And so let's have a think. In popular culture, for a very long time, we only seem to be capable of messing things up colossally. We either create completely dysfunctional superheroes, we can't experiment on animals ethically without making a mess, and we tend to create massive ecosystem collapse through bioengineering. I mean, honestly, at this point, we could say we've achieved this with other technologies, but I think you know what I mean. And my friends like to tease me because I'm a chronic aerialist, and I rather enjoy seeing the world upside down and the other way around. So there are actually a lot of good bioengineering stories out there, real bioengineering stories. We just don't think about them because they're not in the cultural, popular imaginary. So this would be things like goats that have been engineered to produce awesome spider webs or insulin, breast cancer medicine, and recently there's been a lot of success, or some promising success, with treating certain kinds of childhood deafness and blindness with gene therapy. And my friend with her funky arm, there's a company called Concerta Biosciences in the US that's a female-led startup that is synthetically engineering microbiomes to be individualized to different people's skin to help them treat things like fungal infection. I wanted to make a joke about bioengineering, biomedical engineering, but unfortunately I couldn't get FDA approval for that today, so sorry about that. And if you think my accent is weird, I apologize because I'm a bit of a mongrel. I started out in South Africa where I was studying bioinformatics because I was modeling malarial proteins. And then I moved to Japan, to the most interdisciplinary, multinational institute. And I was constantly bombarded with accents from all over the world. So I think I just absorbed them all by osmosis. And like my topic, I'm a bit of a chimera. So my role today is looking at academic literature, which often focuses on negative stories about genetic engineering and how this will cause the end of our world, how when we wield this technology, we create eugenic societies, we create a terrifying hellscape. And there's just more stories that show that these technologies can help humanity to adapt and thrive in an ever-changing environment. So my role at the Popsicle is to be part of a whole bunch of multidisciplinary academics who are constantly reading and freaking out about cool stuff in pop culture and science fiction. So I'm doing a wide analysis, or something called qualitative analysis, of independent comics and seeing what modern day comics producers are making. I want to disrupt this discourse that humans and bioengineers in pop culture are only irresponsible and can only wield these technologies to do terrible things. And by disrupting this, we can start to focus instead on how we can use these technologies in less obvious ways, but ways that empower us and help us to imagine radically sustainable futures. All right. So, for real superpowers that allow us to clean the house without chemicals, heat up our food without a microwave, and prevent world hunger. Now, why am I using comics as the medium to study this? Well, that's because comics have a long history of being incredibly disruptive. And speaking of disruptive, like these guys, I'm sure by now you've been following some of the news that we've apparently de-extinctioned to a pair of direwolves. And as responsible consumers, I'm sure you've all been following the arguments for and against this, and you will understand that this is now a complex issue for two major reasons. And the one is that genetically, these guys are mostly still just gray wolves. They've had like one or two small changes that give them an aesthetic direwolf makeover, essentially. And the second reason is more important, is that there are other animals whose extinction we are directly responsible for that would be better off served by genetic conservation efforts, get relatively much less funding. So hopefully you can see from this lovely comic example, and this comic came out like maybe 2 days after the announcement of the dire wolves. So comics creators respond quickly, and this example shows you that they're really good at summing up complex ideas and arguments into very simple visual narratives, and often use humor quite successfully to do so. Nevertheless, this is a wonderful example because this is the idea of de-extinction and reversing some of the damage that we as the human race have done is a perfect example of biotechno-optimism and an example of hope. So, imagine you're walking down the street and this massive pigeon comes and lands on your shoulder. It's built, it's literally been engineered to carry 3 times its weight. It's got your lunch. It then gives you a report of all the nutrition in your lunch, and when you finish with your lunch, it picks up your lunch, flies away, and goes to recycle your waste. I mean, talk about overachieving. But hold on, is this science fiction? Yes, but also science fiction is a lot more nuanced than just science fiction. I would say that this kind of science fiction falls into the realm of hope punk and biopunk. So these are subgenres in pop culture, and specifically I'm interested in comics, that I know it sounds a little bit like a post-apocalyptic indie band, but they have great potential. So bioengineering, I've been talking about that. What is that, right? That's like when your body goes to the gym, takes some genetic supplements, and you start bench pressing chromosomes. Yeah? No. Great attempt. So actually, we're living in an age where science fiction is the thing that is usually teaching us most of what we think we know about bioengineering, which is why we study pop culture. And synthetic biology and how our future could include genetically modified organisms or crops that maybe talk back, or self-repairing buildings that tell you when they need to take a nap. Comics are serious business, but they're also really hilarious, and they incorporate some strange stories and technologies in really strange ways. Like the idea of self-regenerative buildings that grow like a chia pet, but with more bricks and less sprouts. Do you know how awkward it would be if you're in the middle of a Zoom conference and this like poison ivy pot plant sticks its head out and you're like, oh no, don't worry about that. That's just my self-regenerating toilet reminding me to feed me. Enter hope punk. What is that exactly? It's not an emotional version of punk rock. It's a genre where instead of throwing up your hands and saying, everything is going to hell, I'm done with it, people actually say, hang on, we can keep going. We're gonna make things better with like bioengineering and positivity and really good vibes, right? Hope punk heroes and bioengineers are not just running around fighting evil scientists. They are like, hey, I've just reprogrammed the DNA of my cactus to receive Wi-Fi, and now it's downloading my favorite podcasts. Yes, hope. Right. But it's a little bit more than that. Hope punk is, it's what we call, it's not naive hope. it's what we call weaponized optimism. It's, yeah, okay, we might have driven our planet down the toilet, but we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to grow a fabulous mohawk, and we're going to face the future in these incredible, pit viper solar punk goggles, and we're going to tackle it, usually with technology. Comics like The Watchmen and The Boys show us bioengineering in the most horrific light possible. This usually involves, some kind of weird, unstable superhero, which with extreme daddy issues and the emotional stability of a 4-year-old on a candy roller coaster. But Hopanka is like, let's use the bioengineering to save the world and not implode into a pile of genetically modified goo at the end. In more subtle stories, we've got fascinating things like this genetically modified potato in Okja, which is clearly a commentary on socioeconomic commentary on the future of factory farming, while being adorable and terrifying at the same time. And it's not really a potato, it's supposed to be a genetically modified pig, but yeah. Okay, so we've covered superheroes, we've covered regenerating buildings, but what about the scientists in these comics? What are bioengineers like in these hope punk comics? Are they the typical stereotypical white male, older dude, lab coat, balding, glasses? And no, they're not. Bioengineers in these comics are freaking rad. They're queer, they're trans, they're messy, they're recovering, they're educated to various levels. Some of them are not educated at all, they're self-taught biohackers. They have incredible agency and purpose and very intricate narratives. Some of them, not all of them are wearing lab coats. In fact, some of them are pretty kick-ass with their goth makeup and have decided to adopt the genetically modified pig that carried the organs for their sex change into their family. They're fascinating. So why am I telling you about all of this? What is the point of all of this? Bioengineering might sound like something scary right now, thanks to pop culture, I'm sorry, where a bunch of scientists are going to create zombies and a eugenic society and send us all into the pits. But really, how we use these technologies in real life is creatively to reimagine the future. So let's look for stories where these alternate uses of the technology take center stage. Maybe that future involves your cactus learning how to sing while reducing your carbon footprint. And maybe it's where your bio-jacked superheroes are less about saving the world from destruction and more about creating awesome regenerating buildings and spaceships so that you can, in fact, one day afford your own home. And if you want to learn more about the Popsicle, please check out our website. We are living the punk life for real.